All right, let's dive deep into Serie A Matchday 19. Forget just looking at the scores. We're going to uncover those tactical stories that make this league so exciting, even if you aren't a diehard fan.
You got it. And this week had a little bit of everything. From tight title races and relegation battles to some awesome underdog upsets and all the stuff that makes sports so dramatic.
Right, like classic sports drama.
Plus, Serie A is famous for its tactical battles. We'll see how managers try to outsmart each other, how that individual brilliance shines through.
Yeah, it's like a chess match on the field.
Exactly.
Okay, let's jump right in with Napoli's 3-0 win over Fiorentina. Looks simple on paper, but it was way more than just a win, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. This was a statement win.
It's a statement, yeah.
Under Conte, Napoli really controlled the tempo of the match. They stretched Fiorentina's defense wide, especially using their wingers on the right side, and they created so many chances through these quick one-touch passing plays with Zielinski and Raspadori, like the heart of it all.
And they had the goals to prove it. Neres got things started in the 29th minute. Lukaku added another from the penalty spot in the 54th. And McTominay sealed the deal with a goal in the 68th minute. What really impressed you about their performance?
It's interesting you brought up McTominay's goal. It came from a really well-worked move that actually started all the way back with their goalkeeper.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They move the ball up the pitch so methodically, drawing Fiorentina's players out of position. Then, bam, they exploit that space with a perfect through ball to McTominay, who just finished it off cool as a cucumber. And this highlights a trend I'm seeing more and more in Serie A teams, putting more focus on building from the back and using these really intricate passing moves to break down defenses.
So it's not just about having these superstar attackers anymore. It's about the whole system working together to build up the play.
Exactly. Everyone's got to be involved.
Fiorentina, though, they put up a fight, even though they lost.
Oh, absolutely. They weren't just going to roll over. They used this compact 4-4-2 formation that made it really tough for Napoli to break through the middle. Milenkovic, their center back, organized the defense well, and they were actually dangerous on the counterattack, especially with Keane, who used his speed to get behind Napoli's defense a few times.
Yeah, they definitely weren't just going to let Napoli walk all over them.
No way.
Napoli had to work for it.
They definitely did. Fiorentina forced them to be patient and creative. It makes you wonder, does Napoli relying so much on key players like Zielinski and Raspadori make them vulnerable if those guys get injured or something?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Definitely something to keep an eye on as the season goes on.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, we saw how powerful attacking football can be with Napoli, but some other teams this week showed that a strong defense can be just as effective. Let's shift gears to some matches where the scores might not have been as flashy, but the tactical battles were just as fierce.
Okay, yeah, I like that. A lot of draws this week, but trust me, they weren't boring at all.
Okay, good. I'm ready for some tactical deep dives. So tell me about the Hellas Verona versus Udinese match. It ended 0-0, but Verona played with only 10 men for most of the game because of an early red card. Talk about an uphill battle.
Oh man, it was. Their manager, Zanetti, deserves a ton of credit for how he handled that. Right after the red card, he switched to a 5-4 nuo, bringing on another defender and basically parking the bus.
Oh, yeah.
The focus was all about denying Udinese space anywhere dangerous and then relying on counterattacks when they had a chance. Gunter and Temez were amazing in midfield, just working tirelessly on defense, and Montipo, the goalkeeper, made some absolutely crucial saves.
Sounds like a true backs-to-the-wall effort.
Absolutely. Textbook grit and determination. It was commendable for sure. Their defense was top-notch. But, part of me wondered if they could have been a bit more adventurous in attack, especially later in the match. They had a couple of opportunities to break forward, but they often played it safe, holding on to the ball instead of risking losing it and leaving themselves open to Udinese's counterattacks.
So it was like this balancing act, right? Especially when you're down a man. Do you go all in on defense or try to sneak in a few attacks? That's a tough call for a manager.
Yeah, high-pressure situation for sure.
Well, in this case, prioritizing defense worked out for Verona. They got a point against a team that, on paper, should have beaten them easily.
Yeah, they really pulled it off.
It makes you think about how important discipline and tactics are in football. Can a team actually win without scoring? What do you think?
I think it shows that there are so many ways to be successful in this sport. Sometimes a point earned from pure defensive resilience is just as valuable as a win, especially given the circumstances.
Well, let's talk about unexpected results. The Cagliari 2-1 win over Monza caught my eye.
Yeah, that one was a great example of how unpredictable this sport can be. You never know what's going to happen. And Cagliari, even though they've been struggling this season, they pulled off a fantastic result.
They were down early, but they really fought back, showed some serious character.
They did.
Zortea and Piccoli were key to that comeback, scoring the goals that turned the tide.
What I was most impressed by was their tactical discipline, especially after taking the lead. They didn't just sit back and defend, they kept pressing high, forcing Monza into mistakes. They took the game to their opponents, which is something you don't always see from a team in their position.
It's a good reminder that even teams fighting near the bottom of the table can still pull off impressive wins,
Absolutely.
secure those crucial points.
Every point matters.
So we've seen tactical masterclasses, underdog victories, but we can't talk about Serie A match day without mentioning the highlight of the weekend, the Derby della Capitale, as Roma versus their city rivals, Lazio. Now, this match was a spectacle, wasn't it?
Oh man, the Derby della Capitale. It's more than just a football match. It's about culture, identity, generations of rivalry. The atmosphere is electric, the passion. You just can't find that anywhere else in Syria.
And this year's Derby definitely lives up to the hype. Roma won 2-0, but it was a hard-fought battle all the way through.
It was a proper derby. Roma's manager had a clear plan going into this one. They sat back, absorbed Lazio's pressure, and looked to hit them on the break. And then, boom, Pellegrini opens the scoring with this stunner of a goal in the 10th minute. A curling effort from outside the box that left the Lazio keeper with no chance.
That goal really set the tone for the whole match.
It did, and even though Lazio had more of the possession, they struggled to break down Roma's organized defense. Cristante shielded the back four brilliantly, winning tackles and interceptions left and right. And Smalling, he was marshaling the defense with his usual authority, reading the game so well and just snuffing out danger wherever it popped up.
And we can't forget Saelemaker's goal in the 65th minute, basically sealing the win for Roma.
Yeah, that was another great example of their counterattacking, pouncing on a Lazio mistake and punishing them.
Ruthless.
Roma were disciplined, organized, and just ruthlessly efficient. A tactical masterclass.
Yeah. But even though the scoreline looks like an easy win for Roma, this match was anything but. Lazio had their chances, they made Roma work for it.
Oh yeah, it wasn't a walk in the park. Lazio's manager used a 4-3-3 formation, hoping to control the ball and create chances through their intricate passing. They had Cataldi pulling the strings in midfield, setting the tempo, trying to unlock Roma's defense with his clever passing. And Immobile, always a threat with his movement and finishing, but Roma's defense did a great job of keeping him quiet.
It always comes back to that defense, huh?
Yeah, it was a battle.
And then, to add to the excitement, Lazio had a player sent off late in the game, which really tilted things in Roma's favor. Talk about a dramatic ending.
Yeah, you had passion, intensity, tactical battles, and a good bit of controversy. Everything you want in a derby.
This is a match that'll be talked about for a long time.
For years, for sure. But let's move on to some other interesting results from Matchday 19. We've got a couple more draws to break down, and believe me, they weren't dull at all.
I'm all ears. These tactical chess matches are really opening my eyes to the nuances of Serie A.
I knew you'd come around.
All right, lead the way. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
All right, so we saw how a team can pull off a draw with only 10 men and how a well-executed counterattacking game plan can win a derby. Let's dive into a couple of matches where, even though they ended goalless, the tactical battles were just as exciting. Up first, we have Lecce versus Genoa.
This was a really interesting one. You had two teams basically canceling each other out. Lecce, under Giampaolo, they usually prefer a possession-based style, but they just couldn't seem to break through Genoa's defense.
So how did Genoa manage to shut down Lecce's attack? Did you notice any specific tactical moves they used?
Well, Genoa's manager, Vieira, he set them up in a really compact 5-3-2 formation. That allowed them to clog up the midfield and really limit Lecce's passing options. They focused on keeping their defensive shape tight and then used those quick transitions to catch Lecce off guard.
Smart.
Their back line, led by Boni, was super disciplined, closing down spaces, forcing Lecce into taking those long shot attempts. Nothing too dangerous.
So it sounds like Genoa really prioritized defense over going all out in attack. Did that completely shut down Lecce's creativity, though? Were there any moments where they looked like they might break through?
Oh, Lecce had their moments, especially in the first half. They put together some nice passing plays, but in the final third, they just couldn't find that cutting edge.
Yeah.
Their wingers couldn't find the space to cross the ball, and their strikers were often isolated against Genoa's center backs. It was tough.
So even with more possession, they just couldn't turn it into good scoring chances.
Right. It really shows how important it is to have a backup plan, something to try when you run into a stubborn defense like that.
So was this a missed opportunity for Lecce, or should they be happy with a point against a tough defensive team like Genoa?
It's kind of both, I think. On the one hand, they've got to be frustrated. They couldn't do more with all that possession. But on the other hand, getting a point away from home against a team like Genoa, that's never a bad result, especially considering where they are in the standings.
Fair point. And for Genoa, this draw has to feel pretty good.
Yeah,
They came in with a plan to frustrate Lecce, and they walked away with a point.
exactly. It shows they have the discipline and organization to compete against teams that, on paper, might look stronger.
Exactly, yeah.
And if they can keep up that defensive solidity, they'll be in a good spot to pick up more valuable points throughout the season.
All right, so we saw how a disciplined defensive performance can earn you points on the road. Let's switch gears to another goalless draw, this time between Torino and Parma. What were the big tactical stories you noticed in that one?
This one had a similar feel to the Lecce-Genoa match. Both teams focus more on defensive stability than on attacking expansive play. Torino, under Vanoli, they usually like to attack more, but Parma's defense was just too organized for them to break through.
So what was it about Parma's defense that made it so tough for Torino to get past them? Was it a specific formation, or were there some standout individual performances?
Parma's manager, Pecchia, he went with a 4-4-2, and the focus was very clearly on defense. They pressed hard in midfield, disrupting Torino's build-up play, forcing those long balls that Parma's center backs were able to deal with pretty easily.
Oh, I see.
Their midfield, anchored by Hernani, was especially impressive, really shielding the defense effectively and limiting Torino's options going forward.
So Parma came in with a game plan and executed it perfectly.
Yeah, they really did. Torino had a few moments, especially when their wingers got behind Parma's fullbacks, but their final ball just wasn't accurate enough. They couldn't create any clear-cut chances. You got to give credit to Parma's goalkeeper, too. He made some clutch saves to keep that clean sheet.
Seems like these two goalless draws show a trend in Serie A, a shift towards being more practical and defensively solid. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. Serie A has always been known for being tactically smart, but now we're seeing more and more teams prioritize defense and organization above all else.
Right.
I think part of it is just how competitive the league is. Every point is precious.
Makes you wonder, though, is this focus on practicality good or bad for Serie A? Does it make things more exciting or less exciting?
It's an interesting question. Some people say it makes the league less fun to watch because there are fewer goals and moments of individual brilliance.
Right.
But I actually think it adds another layer of intrigue to the tactical battles. It forces teams to be more creative in attack, to figure out how to unlock these stubborn defenses.
So it's not enough to just have star attackers anymore. You need a system, a tactical approach that can break down even the toughest defenses.
Exactly. And that makes watching Serie A even more interesting. It's not just about who has the best players, it's about who can outsmart their opponent tactically.
Like a game of chess on the pitch.
Exactly. And that makes it so much fun to watch. It's not just about who has the best players, it's about who can outsmart their opponent tactically. Speaking of tactical battles, we can't wrap up our Matchday 19 discussion without going back to the match that had the most at stake emotionally and for the title race. The Derby della Capitale.
It's amazing how these tactical chess matches really make you see Serie A in a whole new light. It's not just about the stars or the goals. It's the whole dance of systems and strategies.
It's what makes it so fun to follow, right? Like even looking back at Napoli's win, their dominant performance against Fiorentina, it was more than just a victory. It was a statement about their tactical evolution under Conte.
You're saying it goes beyond the scoreline. It tells us about what's happening in Serie A overall.
Exactly. Their emphasis on possession, on using those wingers to stretch the field, and those intricate passing plays we talked about, that reflects this broader trend we're seeing in the league.
Okay.
Teams are moving away from these rigid formations, and they're embracing this tactical flexibility.
So it's like the whole league is becoming one giant chessboard, with managers constantly trying to outsmart each other with different formations and strategies.
I love that analogy, and honestly, it's what makes the league so interesting to watch, right? It's not just about individual talent anymore. It's about who can outsmart their opponent, tactically speaking.
And think about those other matches we talked about. Verona's defensive stand against Udinese, Cagliari's discipline in their upset against Monza. These weren't flukes. They were tactical masterclasses.
No doubt. And those performances show that even teams without a ton of star power can achieve great results when they have coordinated tactics and that determination to win.
Right. They level the playing field.
Exactly, which makes the league so much more exciting.
And of course, we can't forget the Derby della Capitale, the clash of the Titans in Rome. Even with all that passion and intensity, there were still those clear tactical threads throughout that match.
Absolutely. Roma's victory wasn't just heart, it was about Mourinho's strategic brilliance. That disciplined defense and clinical counterattacking approach, the kind we saw in Saelemaker's goal, those were the deciding factors. They absorbed the pressure, and then bam, they struck when the chance was there.
So whether it was Napoli's control, Verona's defense, or Roma's strategic play, Matchday 19 really had something for every fan. It showed off the tactical depth and unpredictability that makes Serie A so exciting.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And taking a step back, looking at all these matches within the bigger picture of the season, it tells us so much about how Serie A is changing.
Right. It's a league where tactical innovation is key. You see underdogs stepping up, and that passion for the game, like we saw in the Derby della Capitale, it's stronger than ever.
Okay, before we wrap things up, we want to leave you with a final thought. Which team impressed you the most this weekend? Was it Napoli's tactical brilliance, Verona's defensive resilience, or maybe the heart and determination of Cagliari? Or were you captivated by that drama and intensity of the Derby della Capitale?
It's a tough one.
It is. But no matter what caught your eye, keep exploring Serie A. It's a league full of surprises, tactical battles, and just moments of pure magic. You won't be disappointed.
Keep diving deep, everyone.
Yeah.